Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the Wave. We're going to go ahead and get started. We're going to first jump into some deadlines that are coming up. Your 2021 Civil Rights data collection, that has been extended to March 11th. So we have pre-populated some of those data elements, which you can choose to accept or overwrite. If they're correct, great. If you need to change some of the numbers, then please overwrite those. If you've got questions on the data that we've collected, you can email us at crdc@sde.ok.gov. Or if it's in relation to just the CRDC questions, contact the CRDC at aemcorp.com, or you can call them at 855-255-6901. Something everybody's probably looking forward to is the ASR. It's going to be opening soon. And once it opens, I ask that you go in and check your calendars and verify that they're all correct to date. And be sure to check the professional days, parent-teacher conference days, and ensure that they're being reported correctly as well. We want you to check your student view for transportation to make sure that you're collecting that data, and also find missing students to see if you've got any kids showing up there that shouldn't be. If you've got questions about the report at all, please contact state aid at state.aid@sde.ok.gov, or you can contact Lori at 405-522-0139 or Mitzi at 405-522-0120. And I think Lori's on here with us. Do you have anything else to add to that, Lori?
I don't think so at this time.
Okay, sounds good.
I think I just need everybody to start looking. And if you're an infinite campus district, I will say you really need to check to make sure you put it to all year to be reported instead of just first 9 weeks, because we've noticed a lot of them when we were looking at tests. I'm really hoping that's going to open next week.
Thanks, Lori.
Welcome.
Okay, next thing I want to talk about is exit codes and exit dates. So when you don't enter this information when you're exiting a student, it affects our accountability reporting. And so, I've listed the valid exit codes that you would utilize when a student moves to a district or, whatever in state. So if they're moving out of state, you're going to use the 1909. If they're moving out of state and at a private school, it would either be 1912 or 1915. Private schools in state would be 1910, 11, 1913, and 1914. Those are your options. If they're moving outside the country, it's 1916. If they're leaving to go to an institution, it would be 1917. If they're being homeschooled, 1918. And public in-state transfers, what you could either use 1907, depending on the situation, 1908, 1919, or 3508. At the end of school year, if they're not a graduate, you should use 3505, just exited. And if they are graduating, you should use 1921. If they've passed away or they died, it would be 1923. Or if they're leaving the district because of an illness, it's 1924. The thing about it, if you're not populating that, it does affect accountability's reporting. And I think we have Alyssa Griggs on. Is there anything else, Alyssa, that you want to add to that? She may not be on. Okay, I don't see her on. So
Nancy.
Yes, ma'am.
The ASR is going to include the exit codes now. That was something that was added to it. I don't know if this plays into what you're talking about, because I really don't know, but I do know that. Okay. I just want them to know that it'll be on the ASR.
So that they'll be able to see if the exit code is included?
Yes.
Okay, great. All right. And so if for some reason you don't put an exit code on, I'm going to a different one. So another thing about accountability, make sure your grades are entered and maps. So they're sent to the state. That's something that to do with the accountability reporting as well. If they're not getting the letter grades, it's creating issues on some of their reporting. So we'll be contacting those districts who we're not receiving that data from. So just please, if you get a call from us, I'm sure it's in regards to that. And we're currently looking for the first semester grades right now. So go in and make sure that your vendor is sending that data to us.
You guys will know this as the post-secondary opportunities report, that they've moved it over to the accountability system, but the data that they're using is still coming from the exact same spots as it was when we were doing the post-secondary opportunities report in the way. So it's the same data sets. Just make sure that your student marks are being sent from your student information system vendor. Most of you should be fine for right now.
Thanks, Eric. Okay, so back to exit codes. If you're not sending the exit code, you're going to get a validation error. So please, I want you to work all your validation errors, but if you see the exit codes, pay close attention to those too, because if we're missing a date or the code, you're going to get a validation error. Also, SSO items, please make sure you're working your ownership wizard, your STN wizard as well. I mean, we are working, when you send one to us that needs data system, we work in either assigning a new STN or resolving that one. If you've got new employees that are starting that need wave access, it can take up to 24 hours for it to show up, but you will need to contact OMES and at service desk at omes.ok.gov. And, if you have questions in regards to data, you can send that information to studentdatainfo@sde.ok.gov, or on the SDA or SDE website, you can go under student information to documents and guides and find a lot of useful information there as well. So that's all I have. Is there any questions?
I will say this, that the exit codes that are being collected on the ASR are going to be the official codes that are used for dropout and graduation report for accountability in the fall. So it will be very important that we make sure that graduates and students that that are no longer attending your district are exited correctly with the proper code. There will be an allowance for exits that happen over the summer to change that data in the fall. But anything any exits that took place prior to summer, prior to the last day of your school year, will need to be reflected properly as that type of exit in your student information system as part of the ASR, or those will not be able to be changed after the fact in the fall. So if you had a student that exited or graduated or for whatever other thing happened to the student other than they just moved to another school, even if they just moved to another school, if the student is not exited properly in the ASR with the proper code in ASR, and they show up as a dropout in the fall, or a non-graduate in the fall, and it happened during the school year, those changes will not be allowed by accountability next year. Only if the exit happened over the summer, will those changes to exit reasons be accepted next year. So I want you to understand how important it is for the exit reason to be there and accurate in the ASR. For your summer graduates, you will be able to change those codes after the summer happens. So any graduates that happen during the summertime, they finish up their diploma or graduation requirements is a better way to say that, then you will be able to change those to graduates in the fall, and that should not have any effect on that. There may be some documentation required to do that through a DVR process, but it's really not going to be that big of a deal for those that graduated in the summer. I'm not sure exactly how accountability is going to handle that. However, anybody that has already graduated prior to the end of the school year or left your school district prior to the end of your school year needs to be coded with a proper exit code on the ASR so that they are not coded or not accounted for incorrectly when we do the accountability reports for graduation and dropout. So like I said, I want everybody to understand, if it happens during the summer or over the summer, you have a student you believe is going to enroll next year, or they graduate in the summer or whatever it is, and that does not happen, those exits will be allowed to be changed after the summer or as it happens. We understand that happens. We know that happens. What we are asking for is that the exit codes that happen during the year are appropriately marked as the correct type of exit during the year. That's it.
It's Lori again. I wish I probably should start writing things down so I could remember them, but I don't because I didn't remember it. On the ASR, another thing we've added, which was on the FQSR, you probably show it. There's a tab for the alternative ed student view. So this gives a place where we are going to pull for alternative education allocations or funding, if you want to, however you want to call it. So you probably just want to go in there and look at it, make sure you're reporting some. And if you are a co-op, make sure the kids that are attending alternative ed at an LEA are coded that way, because that money will still follow them over to the LEA. So I know that there was several schools in a co-op who didn't have them coded. So, and we will be using that next year for the calculation.
Linda has a question. It says, so if they exit during the year as a dropout and then they find out over the summer where they went, would they be able to correct that?
Yes, if you receive a records request or have some type of documentation that you received during the summer after they dropped out and you find out they enrolled somewhere else, yes, they would allow that change.
You're welcome. Anybody else? Okay, if there are no other questions, we'll go ahead and
I will say, let me say one more thing. The accountability reporting app, the dropout report is going to be available during the same time the ASR is. So if you go into the dropout report and see that a student is currently counted as a dropout, and you don't believe that that's an accurate reflection for next year, then it would be good to look at the exit code and check and make sure that that exit code is annotated properly, so that the student may or isn't a dropout. That report's available all the time, so you should be able to see those live, up to date, those that are getting counted as a dropout.
oh, and that's one thing I want to mention too. On the slides that I presented, all those codes that were presented are not for students that would be counted as dropouts. There are other codes that aren't reflected on this, but these are the codes you would use if a student is not a dropout.
No more new information on the transferred. We're waiting on a website update that OMES has to do in order to release the form that will automatically assign STNs. So right now, I mean, I'm going to say that you would have to enroll any students that are your residents that request enrollment in your district that are your residents. You have to do that, obviously, just like any other student. But no, PEBT, there's some supplemental money going out right now for CEP and Provision 2 and 3 sites. And for those that may or may not have gotten all the benefits they should have gotten on the first round, we're waiting on a vendor to finish the district portal and accountability reporting to review the data from 2021. I have not been given a date. I've been asking pretty much every week when that's going to be done. I expect it to be done anytime now. So I don't have any other information right now, Linda. No, I understand that, Carrie. Yep, you're right. Enrollment's coming very, very, very soon. Suggest you, when you guys are building your schedules out next year, you start thinking about the medium of instruction area. Make sure that you're creating, if you have a virtual program, make sure a virtual section for any particular class or course. You need to have a separate section for virtual and a separate section for in-person, and you need to enroll the students accordingly. So if you have those, if you have a blended option, you can do that as well. But we can also determine blended by the just, you know, I don't know how many people have classes that are actually blended classes where sometimes they're in class and sometimes they're not. Maybe you have that. If you have that, make sure you're annotating that in medium of instruction in the section info object. And I want to make sure that you guys know that that is going to be something that we're using next year for different reports, for federal reporting, for telling this or the federal government how often or how many students are doing virtual versus blended versus in-person classes. So I didn't know about that, Christy. I did not know that there were problems with Serbian XSD issues. Let me look into that. I'm guessing you're using a code. I'll look up I mean, you probably already know a code, but let me look up and see what codes you're using. Can you email me an STN or something so I can kind of check in and see what's going on? Or a district, just tell me what district you're in. I can kind of find it.
She's Norman.
Norman, okay. I'll look it up.
Okay, anything else?
Anything else?
Doesn't look so. Okay, we'll go ahead and stay on for a minute, but thank you all for joining, and we'll talk to you next week.
Thanks, guys. That's a long time to wait, Chris. All the way till 2211. Man, that's a long time.
Carolyn wants you to repeat what you said about the PBET update.
Yeah, the PBT funding, we're doing a, I sent a new files to DHS for a supplemental calculation. So I sent them a new file on the number of days each student should have gotten or been found eligible for each month. And they're going through and determining how much they sent already to each student and making sure that they sent the proper amount. If not, they're going to supplement that amount. And so that's what's going on right now. We're also working on a systems that districts can go in and make sure that the data that was sent for 2021 PBT aligns with what actually was in place. We're developing a training module as well. It's actually 3 training modules on PBT. So whenever that system is up and running and available for you guys to go in and look at the data and correct any data that needs to be corrected for the 2021 school year, you will also have a few training modules to go through to make sure that you understand what all needs to be done and how it needs to be verified, and make sure you know everything you need to know to make those corrections and changes, and how to review the data itself. So we've got a really, really cool training module for PBT specifically. It's going to be on OK Edge. So make sure everybody gets access to it and understands how to use it, and then gets in there. and makes the changes that they need.
All right. Well, I'm gonna go ahead and close out the call. Thanks again for joining and talk to you next week.
Okay, thanks, guys.